Thank you, Professor Kwon. And I'm aware that I'm the last speaker, so I will put a stopwatch here and I'll time myself to 15 minutes maximum. So yeah, you will see that, thank you, Professor Kwon, for the nice introduction, and also thanks to KACS and NIS for the kind invitation. You see that the slide here, I thought, I want to make it more colorful because I was aware that I was the last speaker. This is the Great Barrier Reef, and on the bottom middle part is actually one of our campuses as well. It's the Heron Island Research Center for the Great Barrier Reef. And Queensland, in my opinion, and I think geographically, is the closest to Korea. So we are the closest part of Australia to Korea. Yes, so I will just very briefly skip over this, but basically we were founded in 1909, a top 50 university, but most importantly is the final point in the context of this event, which is in 1992, UQ, University of Queensland, UQ, established AUCERT, Australian Cyber Emergency Response Team, and it became the world's second oldest computer emergency response team after Carnegie Mellon's CERT. And they started it because there was a bunch of Queenslanders, people from Queensland, who tried to hack NASA satellites. So universities came together to divert the threat. Our center takes an interdisciplinary research approach. Cyber is, as I can see from this event as well, it takes multidisciplinary perspectives. It's quite hard to put it into one silo, so we have to look at it with a team of experts. So we bring together the industry, 600 over members from AUCERT, our IT services department in the university, more than 100 partners from industry, and 13 faculties and schools coming together to talk about, from quantum to computer science to policy and so on. About 60-something academics teaching into a range of courses. We're quite proud of the Master of Cybersecurity course because it takes students from any background. Actually, as long as you have a bachelor's degree, you'll be able to join us, and we want a diversity of thought. We have more than 100 PhD students actively doing so. So this is one of the pictures that you will see here. It's actually the team Oceania, the top white hat cybersecurity experts aged 18 to 26. We were in San Diego last year and we won second place. So these are the top 15 youths in Australia, New Zealand, and the rest of the Pacific Island nations. Actually, this year, the event is going on right now in Santiago, and they just got the results. They told me that we won third this year, so not doing too badly. We work with a lot of ROK partners, especially Professor Kwon's Korea University. Thank you for the collaboration. And also with BOB, gave a couple of talks there as well, and we collaborate with them a lot. KLM, Hankook University of Foreign Studies as well, yeah. And hopefully more after today. This is something that when I planned this, I thought I was going to be one of the unique ones, but I realized that I'm among many people, like-minded people, so I'll just skip this. But I think the intent and the capabilities, we should always focus on the definition of the paper, which is about pursuing objectives. And this was actually seen in the first session, and so I'll skip that. But I want to go through now in a little bit of detail some of the objectives, because I think that's really interesting to see where the focus of different countries put. One of the objectives is surveilling and monitoring domestic groups, looking at your own people. The top three in this chart, we saw the 2020 and the 2022 one, but in 2022, the top three are China, Vietnam, and Iran. Strengthening the national cyber defense, the top three are Australia, Ukraine, and US. Controlling and manipulating the information environment, which we hear very nicely about from MTech. The top three are US, Russia, and China. The foreign intelligence collection, which we hear about as well, for national security. US, China, and UK. And then growing the national cyber and commercial technology competence. This is another objective, China, US, and Russia. Destroying, this is the adversarial part that was talked about, or disabling an adversary's infrastructure and capabilities, US, Russia, and China, no surprises there. Defining international cyber norms, which was also discussed earlier today about different areas we can work on, US, UK, and Singapore. And then the last one, but not least, is amassing wealth and extracting cryptocurrency, which is new in the 2022 ranking. Is top 3 is DPRK, China, and Iran. And this is also a result of the sanctions that were put in place, so they had to be a little bit creative in finding other ways to get income for their regime. And this is the ranking which we've seen a lot of times. But the reason why I'm showing you this is because I'm going to focus on Objective 2, which is strengthening and enhancing national cyber defense. And that's what Australia seems to be doing well. And this is my hypothesis. I've not backed this up with any empirical evidence, so please do not shoot me if I'm wrong. The context starts with the Minister Claire O'Neill, who was then the Home Affairs and Cybersecurity Minister in September 2023. Now the minister is different. It's Tony Burke, after a cabinet reshuffle. And they made a very big claim. This was very uncharacteristic for a nation known for its tall poppy syndrome. They say that they want Australia to be a cyber leader by 2030. It shook the nation. Everybody started to wonder what that was. They introduced 6 shields. So the theme and the picture of shields and swords came about as well in the previous session. The 6 shields are strong businesses and citizens, safe technology, world-class threat sharing and blocking, protected critical infrastructure, sovereign capabilities, and resilient region and global leadership. I'm going to talk about Shield 6 first because it leads into what I'm going to say at the final part of my talk. Shield 6 is actually about the diplomacy, and it builds on many years of cyber diplomacy. Primarily, it's coordinated by Brendan Dowling and previously by Tobias Fikin. They have an ambassador for cyber affairs. So this is a very, I would say, an overt intention that is declared to the world that they want to focus on this as a subject of diplomacy. And it builds on the International Cyber and Critical Technology Engagement Strategy, which was launched a few years ago in 2021. Some of the notable programs which was also covered by my colleague Fitriani was the PACSON, the 17 nations across the Pacific. I'm proud to say that the previous chair of PACSON from Vanuatu was my PhD student, Jeff Garay, and I'm really proud of his achievements. We have the rapid teams, which are now invested to respond, so I call them the Pacific Ghostbusters for cyber. And cyber and critical tech cooperation program, which is funding set for academics, policymakers, and also the private sector to come forward to come up with creative ways we can create increased capabilities in the Pacific. Moving on from Shield 6, we move to Shield 1. I think that's something that's close to my heart because you would know that small and medium businesses form about 95% of the Australian economy. If you look at the OECD data, you will see that most of the developed nations have more than 90%. And these are the typical ones where, let's say Australia as a use case, they have low cyber maturity. Most owners, the small business owners will tell you the IT guy has got them covered. They can't defend against the cyber threats and have a low chance of recovering. In fact, there was a recent study that says that 60% of these small and medium businesses do not survive and their business closed down after a cyber attack. 56% of these spend less than 500 Australian dollars per year on cyber. That's not a lot. That's a few meals at McDonald's or KFC for a family. Existing standards and certifications are too complex, and they are too expensive for 95% of the suppliers. So the government and industry efforts have started. One example is CSCAU, Cybersecurity Certification Australia, which I co-founded with a few of my industry partners as an industry council to publish a new standard, which is what we call a dynamic standard. I'll let you know what a dynamic standard is in the next slide. And as of today, 1st of November, we have transited CSCAU's website to dsi.org. So please feel free, if you're bored and you're not listening, feel free to check out the website, dsi.org. So this is DSI. We developed this thing called a dynamic standard, which has 5 tiers. You can think about it like, for example, Taekwondo. We have black belt. Black belt is the expert, you know. But most of the small and medium businesses are not at the black belt. You know, they always have to start from somewhere, the white belt. So we created the 5 belts, the colored belts below the black belts, for them to ultimately reach the black belt in cybersecurity certification, that is ISO IEC 27001. So this is our goal. We wanted to start from low cost at 95 Australian dollars at bronze. They can certify and they can know some actionable items. So this is how it looks like. These are the list of the 45 actions or controls that the small and medium businesses can do. You can see that the bronze level has only 6 controls. Basic things that you and I, you know, all the experts here in the room would know, like configuring a firewall, getting an antivirus software, having a backup for your IT resources. These things we take for granted but are not done by the small and medium businesses. What's more powerful is they could actually use the certificates that they get to articulate their maturity. So the large corporates, for example, the supermarkets that are buying the services of, say, a paper or flour supplier, will be able to say that, hey, I want you to be certified at gold. And then that's it. You don't have to fill in big forms, Excel spreadsheets, and so on. And the industry comes together to update this standard. So right now we have a growing list of industry members, public and private partnerships. The Australian government's Digital Health Agency, for example. We have the Insurance Council, the Signals Directorate, which is the equivalent of KISA here, and ASA, and Australian Information Security Association. We have PACSON on board. We have also state governments like the South Australian government and so on. So this is what we meant by a dynamic standard. And the thing is that besides being annually updated by the steering committee, we have the 5 levels. We have something that's written in easy to understand language. And we encourage the ownership to be taken up by the directors of the companies, the owners of the companies. This is another problem that blurs the line and creates a gray area of the responsibility of cybersecurity. And when the director attests to it, the certification, they're able to tell people that they have taken responsibility. And I think that's a very powerful thing. And that is why the Insurance Council came and said that we have found a solution which helps them to integrate cyber maturity with insurance premiums. Now, I want to change a little bit of an angle, and I want to say in my role as a director of my center and previously in New Zealand, I come across criminology theories. And one of the things that researchers right now are trying to do is traditional criminal theories and crime prevention theories work in traditional crime, non-digital crime. But can they work inside, a cyber crime or digital crime perspective? And the answer is yes. And when we map it to one of the most influential framework for crime prevention in criminology, which is the situational crime prevention framework, it has 5 families, increasing the effort, increasing the risks for the criminal, reducing the rewards, and reducing the provocation, removing excuses. It says that there are 25 techniques under these 5 families. But when we map it to cybersecurity, we only saw 2. In cybersecurity, we make encryption harder or make the thing more secure, hardening the target, number 1. Or we have access control, and we try to have some authentication to prevent unauthorized people to come in. So this means that cybersecurity only uses two out of 25 possible crime prevention techniques. Let that sink in, right? So we have 23 more. Now, these are some of the real-life incidents that happened in Australia, and this happened also after a conversation I had with Minister O'Neill, where she said, you know, I showed her the same thing, the same 25 thing, and I said, look, we're not you know, increasing the risks for we're not increasing the risks for the criminals. We are not reducing the provocation or removing the excuses. So the Australian government came out and identified one of the hackers that took down did a data breach on Medibank, which is the large healthcare provider, and also Optus, which is kind of like a telecommunication company in Australia, where the hacker even came out and apologized for doing the hack. When the government said that we will hunt you, we will come after you, and we will name you, and we will sanction you. The same goes for the Medibank Russian cyber criminal. The sanctions were invoked that anyone who helps this cyber criminal will be put to jail, but even including, as you can see from the bottom of the picture, ransomware payments. So this is the precursor to what was just introduced a few days ago, actually, less than a month ago. On 9th of October, we introduced in Australia the Cybersecurity Bill. It is actually part of a package of multiple legislative reforms. It's not passed through the houses, it's only at the lower house. It's not at the Senate yet, but it's on its way. The most important thing in this package is the Cybersecurity Bill, and also coupled with the Intelligence Services and other legislation amendment, which restricts the usage of voluntary information or information prepared by the Signals Directorate for use against the impacted entity. And also clarifies the definition of what is data assets in critical infrastructure. Now, what is important in here, and I guess as a lesson you know, for international partners, is there was a nationwide consultation. And this nationwide consultation was involving 30 public town hall meetings, deep dive sessions, which many of us went to, you know, and 130 written submissions into, and there was a whole of nation approach to redrawing what the law means for everyone. Using the cybersecurity crime prevention framework that I showed you just now, the SCP framework, Situational Crime Prevention Framework, let's look at some of the measures. Measure 1, enabling the government to establish mandatory security standards for smart devices. This is linked to the consumer IoT discussion just now. Now, when we do this, we remove the excuses and remove the bulk of security risks introduced by smart devices. Measure 2, mandatory reporting of ransomware payments. Now, this was something that was really, really controversial in the nation. We have initially, the measure was not about reporting the payment. Initially, the idea was to ban ransomware payments. Yeah, and then the discussion was quite a large discussion, a pushback from the private and public sectors. And then they said, how about if you pay the ransomware, you have to report by law. So by doing this, they increase the risks, not just, you know, for the criminals, but also a little bit for the payer, the victims, and they also reduce the rewards because of such a law. Australia is now less attractive as a country to ransomware attackers. We have measure 3, which talks about the clarification of the roles. So how do we support an organization in Australia when, you know, they get a cyber incident, and how do we respond for them and with them? And then there's a national cybersecurity coordinator in charge of coordinating the multiple hundreds of different agencies across Australia. And then businesses can then trust the government due to the legislated assurances. And measure 4, establishment of an incident review board. Major incidents that affect the entire country, we have to learn from it come to the drawing board and understand how we can make further improvements. And the continuous improvement then is then reflected. So the green boxes, as you can see in this framework that I was using, with the proposed cybersecurity bill, it is my hypothesis that we are now able to move beyond the two crime prevention approaches into more. I haven't counted the number of green boxes, but definitely you can see there's much more. And I think this is when we are at this inflection point where we can say that, traditionally, legislation is always having a pacing problem with cybersecurity. But now, when we flip it around with principles like this, with this kind of mindset of crime prevention, we're able to make legislation proactive. And with that, I thank you for your attention.